You know, I think we all carry around this secret kind of heavy insecurity about how smart we actually are.
Oh, for sure. Everyone has that to some degree.
Right. And it usually stems from this deeply ingrained, almost societal illusion that being smart requires like a photographic memory or pulling straight A's in school or, walking around with some fancy degree from an elite university.
Yeah, we definitely picture the genius as the person who instantly knows all the trivia answers.
Exactly. Or the one who can just solve complex equations in their head, right?
Right, because we tend to view intelligence as this giant warehouse of facts. The assumption is that either your warehouse is full or it's empty.
Yeah, totally.
And if you struggled in calculus or if you can't remember the capital of North Dakota, you might secretly label yourself as just, not being one of the smart ones. You assume the smartest person in the room is simply the one with the most data downloaded into their brain.
But what if true intelligence isn't a warehouse of facts at all, but rather a deeply actionable set of habits?
That is the big question.
Right, like what if it's less about storage and way more about processing? That is the exact premise we are exploring in today's deep dive. We are looking at a fascinating breakdown by creator Mr. No Plan A. The video is titled, "Watch This for 6 minutes and You'll Outsmart 90% of People." And our mission for you today is to decode what true functional intelligence actually looks like in the real world.
And I think that operational definition is the core thesis we really need to establish up front.
Mm-hmm.
Because the fundamental difference between highly intelligent people and everyone else,
Right.
well, it isn't what they know. It is entirely about how they think.
Okay, wow. So it's about the mechanism.
Exactly. It's how they approach a roadblock, how they process contradictory information, and crucially, how they handle the exact same stressors that make the average person just completely panic.
Right.
It is a behavioral difference. They have engineered a completely different way of interacting with reality.
Okay, let's unpack this, starting with the very first major paradigm shift from our source material, which is all about how we handle disagreement.
This is a huge one.
It really is, because think about what happens when, the average person faces a dissenting opinion. Someone at work challenges their project, or a friend disagrees with their worldview.
They just immediately go to battle.
Exactly. The heart rate spikes, the cortisol floods the system, and the entire goal becomes aggressively proving that the other person is objectively wrong. And I mean, by extension, stupid.
Yeah, it becomes a purely ego-driven defense mechanism.
Yeah.
When our ideas are challenged, our brains often process that cognitive friction as a literal physical threat.
Which is wild to think about.
It is. So we fight. We try to bludgeon the other person with logic and facts. But the source points out that truly smart people do the exact opposite.
They don't fight.
No, they don't.
Mm-hmm.
When they encounter disagreement, instead of launching an offensive, they actually ask questions. And to be clear, these are real, genuine questions of curiosity.
Right, not the fake ones.
Exactly. They aren't those sarcastic trap questions designed to make someone stumble or look foolish. They ask things like, help me understand why you think that, or what happened that made you feel this way.
What's amazing about that is it completely shifts the dynamic of the room. You are immediately taking all the friction out of the interaction. You aren't meeting their force with more force.
What's fascinating here is the psychological disarmament that happens in the other person.
Oh, totally.
When you stop fighting and you stop pushing against their arguments, their defenses instantly drop. They aren't being attacked, so they no longer need to violently guard their position.
Right, because there's nothing to push back against anymore.
Exactly. And that is when they actually start to listen. By asking them to explain their thought process, you're inviting them to examine their own logic.
Which is so clever.
It really is. Real conversations finally happen, and often, by walking through their own reasoning out loud, people will actually change their own minds.
Mm-hmm.
You can never force someone to agree with you by yelling facts at them.
No, never works.
Right. But you can gently guide them into thinking critically about their own ideas.
It's like conversational judo instead of a boxing match.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Yeah, like in boxing, you're just standing there throwing punches, right?
Uh,
Exhausting yourself trying to break through their guard. But in judo, you're using their own momentum to explore the idea. You aren't trying to beat them. You're trying to learn how their mind is working. It takes so much less energy, and it actually leads to a productive outcome.
That mechanism, that stepping back instead of pushing forward aggressively, actually maps perfectly onto how highly intelligent people handle their own internal crises too.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, just as they step back from a heated argument with a colleague, they have this incredible, almost unnatural ability to step back from their own personal failures.
Yes, the camera lens approach.
That's the one.
Because when most of us hit a roadblock, we completely catastrophize that single event. Let's say you bomb a major presentation at work, or you get a harsh rejection letter.
It feels like the end of the world.
It does. The immediate internal monologue isn't about the event itself. It instantly becomes identity-based. The thought is, I'm stupid or I'm worthless. It's incredibly localized. All we see is the disaster right in front of our nose.
Right. The average person looks at a failure through a microscope. All they see is this massive, overwhelming flaw, completely stripped of any surrounding context.
Just the mistake.
Just the mistake. But the source details how smart people use a wide-angle lens instead. They zoom out. They look for patterns and variables.
So they aren't zooming in on the flaw.
No, not at all. A failed presentation doesn't mean I am inherently incompetent. It just means there's a variable in the system that needs tweaking. Maybe they didn't sleep well the night before.
Or maybe the data they relied on was incomplete.
Exactly. Or maybe they just didn't understand the specific expectations of that particular audience. They don't see a failure as definitive proof of their inadequacy. They just see it as data.
It's just information.
It's neutral information telling them what they can learn and what they should adjust for the next iteration.
But let me push back on that slightly.
Sure.
Because it sounds incredibly rational in theory, but isn't it immensely difficult to separate our emotions from failure in the moment? Like when your boss tears apart your proposal in front of the team, the pain and the humiliation are so immediate and visceral.
Oh, absolutely.
Your brain is screaming at you that you are in literal danger. How do you actually zoom out when your biology is trying to initiate a full meltdown?
Well, it is intensely difficult, which is exactly why it's a marker of high functional intelligence.
Yeah.
When that emotional hit comes, you are experiencing an amygdala hijack. The primitive part of your brain is just sounding the alarm.
Sirens blaring.
Right. But the source frames the solution beautifully. Smart people have trained themselves to forcibly turn problems into puzzles.
Puzzles, okay.
They short-circuit the panic by asking themselves specific analytical questions, like, what's really going on here? What parts of this outcome can I control? What should I try next?
So they're forcing their brain to switch gears.
Exactly. By forcing themselves to answer those questions, they are actively engaging the prefrontal cortex, which is the logical planning center of the brain. You are literally rerouting the blood flow away from the panic center and into the problem-solving center. They don't panic, they plan.
What can I control? That is such a loaded question.
It really is.
Because asking what you can control naturally forces you to confront the terrifying, massive mountain of things you absolutely cannot control, which brings up the concept of the energy audit. Highly intelligent people are ruthless about where they spend their cognitive resources.
It is a critical realization. The lack of this specific boundary is the source of so much unnecessary human misery and exhaustion.
It really is. The source lists out these incredibly common yet utterly useless worries that consume so much of our daily bandwidth.
Like what?
Well, we obsess over the macroeconomy. We worry about the weather ruining our weekend. We obsess over whether our boss woke up in a bad mood or what an acquaintance might secretly be thinking about us.
Right, things we have zero say in.
Exactly. And the brutal truth is you literally cannot control a single one of those external realities. So the intelligent shift is contrasting those external uncontrollables with your internal controllable actions.
Giving yourself agency.
Yes. You can't control if it pours rain tomorrow, but you can control bringing an umbrella. You can't control whether the hiring manager ultimately gives you the job, but you can control doing your absolute best to prepare for the interview. You can't control other people's private opinions of you, but you can control showing up as a kind, honest person.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is fundamentally about conducting a strict mental energy audit. Human beings only have a finite amount of cognitive and emotional energy every single day. Decision fatigue is a very real, scientifically proven phenomenon.
It makes me think of RAM allocation on a computer.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, like if you have a computer and 90% of its processing power is running background anxiety programs about the weather or the economy or the boss's mood, well, you only have 10% of your processing power left to actually do your job and live your life. The system inevitably crashes.
That is the perfect analogy. Worrying about the uncontrollable is running massive, heavy background apps for zero benefit. It just drains the battery.
It totally.
It makes people tired, anxious, and stressed before they even tackle a real problem. When you implement a hard psychological rule, like, if I cannot control it, I refuse to spend energy thinking about it,
Wow, yeah.
you suddenly free up all this massive pent-up processing power. And you can redirect all of that cognitive RAM to actually fixing the variables you identified when you zoomed out with your camera lens.
It's pure efficiency.
Yeah.
You're optimizing your brain's hardware, and once you start clawing back all that wasted internal processing power and you stop burning it on useless worry, you start to notice something else shift, which is the way you pace yourself externally.
Right.
Which is the next major insight from Mr. No Plan A, the use of quiet as a deliberate tool.
This represents a profound shift in social dynamics, because most people are absolutely terrified of quiet moments.
No, they hate it.
If there is a single second of dead air in a conversation or a meeting, panic sets in. They feel this overwhelming urge to rush in and fill the void with literally the first thing that pops into their heads.
Just talking to fill the space.
Exactly. They talk just to talk, largely out of a deep-seated fear of appearing awkward or worse, uninformed. But smart people are completely comfortable residing in the quiet. They listen significantly more than they talk, and they actually let other people finish their complete thoughts without formulating their rebuttal while the other person is still speaking.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because societally, we're almost completely conditioned to equate fast, loud talkers with high intelligence.
We really are.
Right. Like, we watch movies or TV shows where the genius character is always firing off rapid-fire dialogue, never hesitating, dominating the room with sheer verbal volume. We have this cultural assumption that verbal speed equals brain power. If you answer instantly, you must be a genius.
We absolutely do have that bias, but it's largely an illusion. The source counters this by pointing out the actual psychological effect of silence in the real world. Pausing before you speak doesn't make you look slow. It actually forces the listener to lean in and pay closer attention.
It draws them in.
Yes. Silence subconsciously assigns weight and importance to the words you're about to say. It signals that your words are scarce and therefore valuable.
That makes a lot of sense.
Quiet people often seem vastly smarter than loud people, not necessarily because their warehouse of facts is any bigger, but because they curate their output. They choose their words carefully instead of just vomiting out every half-formed thought. And the source gives an incredibly practical, actionable tip for mastering this. The next time you are asked a question, internally count to 3 before you begin your answer.
1, 2, 3. Let me tell you, it feels like an absolute eternity when you're the one doing it.
It really does.
I've tried it in meetings, and my heart starts racing because I feel like everyone is staring at me, just judging the silence.
It feels agonizingly long to you because your internal clock is racing. But to the listener across the table, it simply looks like you are deeply, respectfully considering their question.
Right.
It makes them feel valued, and more importantly for you, it ensures your answer is actually coherent and strategic, rather than just a reflexive blurting of words.
But that 3-second pause isn't just about looking contemplative in a board meeting or a job interview. It scales up into arguably the ultimate defense mechanism for navigating life's daily frustrations.
Yes, it does.
This ability to tolerate silence evolves into the ultimate strategy, pausing instead of reacting.
This is where the rubber meets the road in terms of emotional regulation. Because life is essentially an endless series of provocations.
Exactly. What is our default setting as humans? It's immediate, visceral reaction.
Always.
Someone aggressively cuts you off in traffic, and instantly, without thinking, you're furious. You're yelling, you're honking the horn, your day is ruined.
Over in a second.
Yeah. Or someone leaves a mean comment on your work or sends a passive-aggressive email, and you immediately snap back with a defective reply. Things don't go your way, and the reflex is to complain loudly or just throw your hands up. It's an instant reflex arc from stimulus to emotional outburst. But smart people introduce a circuit breaker into that arc.
I love that, a circuit breaker.
Yeah, they feel the exact same initial spike of anger or frustration, but they pause and they take a breath.
Let's look at the internal monologue of a highly intelligent person when they are faced with, say, blatant rudeness from a stranger or a coworker, while the average person is frantically preparing a devastating insult to fire back.
Right, drafting the angry email in their head.
Exactly. The smart person is utilizing that 3-second pause to internally ask, is this situation actually worth my limited energy? What is the most effective way to handle this to get the outcome I want?
Such a better question.
And they might even reframe the entire encounter by thinking, this person might be dealing with a personal tragedy today. How can I respond in a way that de-escalates this rather than adding fuel to the fire?
So what does this all mean? Does pausing and not firing back make you a pushover? Because I know a lot of people listening right now might be thinking, look, if someone insults me or cuts me off and I just stand there taking a deep breath, they're walking all over me. I'm letting them win.
This raises an important question, and it's a very common misconception. The source is exceptionally clear on this stance. Choosing not to react is absolutely not about being weak or submitting to someone else.
Okay.
In fact, it is the purest display of power you can manifest. Think about the dynamics of a heated situation. The person who gets emotional, who loses their temper, who starts yelling and snapping,
They've lost it.
they've completely lost control of themselves. They are entirely at the mercy of their own fluctuating emotions and the other person's provocations. They are a puppet on a string.
Wow, yeah.
But the person who stays calm while the room is spinning, the person who pauses and breathes, that person holds all the power.
Because they are still in control.
Exactly. They are dictating the terms of the engagement. By thinking instead of just reacting, they protect their own peace and they invariably make better, more strategic choices.
It is the ultimate flex, really. Staying completely unbothered while someone else is throwing a tantrum. It shows complete mastery over your internal environment.
It really does.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Mr. No Plan A's insights, let's bring all these threads together. What we've learned today is that real functional intelligence is not some genetic lottery you either won or lost at birth. It isn't about rote memorization or having a pristine academic record.
No, it's behavioral.
Right. It's a series of conscious, daily choices. It's choosing to pause and count to 3 when you want to yell. It's choosing to ask a genuine question when your ego wants to argue. It's choosing to zoom out with a camera lens when you fail and to focus your cognitive RAM only on the variables you can actually control.
And why should you, the listener, care enough to put the effort into this?
Yeah.
Because the results are incredibly tangible and life-altering. If you adopt even one of these habits, your external reality will start to shift.
Absolutely.
People will naturally start coming to you for leadership and advice simply because you project stability. They will wonder how you manage to stay so completely cool under pressure. And internally, you will literally start seeing pathways and solutions where everyone else is just staring blindly at a problem, paralyzed by panic.
And the source gives a fantastic, grounded piece of advice for how to begin, which I want to deliver straight to you. Do not try to change everything overnight.
Oh, yeah, that's a trap.
It is. Don't try to implement all of these shifts today. That is a guaranteed recipe for burning out and giving up. Instead, just pick one of these habits to focus on for the next week.
Just one.
Yeah, maybe you just focus on internally counting to 3 before you answer any question. Or maybe you just try asking, help me understand why you think that the next time you strongly disagree with your partner or a colleague. Just one habit. Master the mechanism, then move to the next.
It's all about making incremental changes in how you process the world around you.
Exactly. And as you go about your week trying out that one new habit, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. We've spent this time talking about how these shifts can dramatically lower your own personal stress and make you a more highly effective individual. But imagine scaling this up. If we all stopped treating every disagreement as a boxing match if we stopped viewing our failures as permanent character flaws, if we all just started treating life's hurdles as puzzles to be solved rather than tragedies to endure, how would the fundamental structure of our daily relationships, our corporate environments, and even our society as a whole begin to change?
It's a powerful shift in perspective. The ripple effects will be profound.
It really is. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Take that breath, count to 3, and enjoy your new perspective.